turn on my mic here. There we go. All right, so I'd like to call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Thursday, March 4th, 2021. If everybody would please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey. Sorry. Old habits die hard.
All right, and Natalie, would you please call the roll?
Member Peters?
Here.
Member Benedict?
Here.
Member Estrada?
Here.
Member Dugan?
Here.
Vice Chairman McBride?
Here.
Chairman Miller?
Here. All right, we'll have it noted that we do have two of our members attending via Zoom, so that's why you're hearing voices but not seeing faces. Next up, do we have any changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
No changes to the agenda. All right, moving on. Did everybody get a chance to review the minutes from last meeting?
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, so we're going to jump into new business, and as we get started, we've got lots of new faces here, so I'm just going to give a quick, brief overview of how the meeting will operate. It'll start off with the staff giving an opportunity to present the agenda item. From there, the commission will ask any questions of staff that they may need clarification on or any further explanation. Then we will ask the applicant to come forward and or their representative. At that time, then they can add any additional information. The commission will get an opportunity to ask any questions of the applicant. And then from there, we will open it up to the public in case there's anybody from the public that would like to speak to the agenda item. We also have Zoom present. I think we have at least one applicant potentially on via Zoom. And so just bear with us as we'll kind of move through those different processes. And if you do have any questions, I just ask that if you ask your question, we'll try and make a note of it. But if we have multiple people asking questions, then we will bring the appropriate party back up to answer those at the end of the public portion. So that way we don't get a lot of back and forth going. So other than that, I will move on to the first agenda item under new business, public hearing and consideration of request by Paul Zita, I was getting there, of Century Complete Homes for a conditional use permit, DSA 21-00025.
Good evening, Chairman, Planning Commissioners. So this is a request by Century Complete Homes for the consideration of a conditional use permit. That's what's required to allow a model home complex. Now, you may recall back in January, they had received housing product approval to construct within the Casa Vista subdivision. At that time, you approved 5 floor plans, each with 3 elevations, ranging from 1,900 square feet to 2,400 square feet. They've acquired 183 lots within the subdivision. The other half has been acquired by Richmond American Homes. Casa Vista, just for context, is the subdivision that's located at the northwest corner of Mitchell Road and Jimmy Kerr Boulevard towards the south end of town. It is a planned area development zone district where a conditional use permit is required for a model home complex similar to that in traditional single-family zone districts. On this screen shows you the location of their proposed complex. Essentially, it's 2 lots. The lot furthest to the east, closest to Mitchell Road, will be their temporary off-street parking area that will be laid with decomposed granite. And then the lot to the west is going to be their model home / sales office. It's their plan number 1880, which is 1,880 square feet in size, the C elevation. When reviewing conditional use permits, the following criteria must be addressed, and the staff report goes into them in greater detail. Essentially, with model home complexes, the last criteria highlighted in yellow is the most applicable, and there are some specific conditions that are a part of the associated resolution that accompanies this conditional use permit to ensure that the public health, safety, and general welfare are protected. And these are fairly standard conditions that you've seen before with other model home complexes. As far as the public notification process goes, there was mailing to owners of property within 300 feet, and a notice was published in the Casa Grande Dispatch. There is not a sign posted because it's not a requirement in the code, and due to the fact that there hasn't been any homes yet constructed in the neighborhood, there really wasn't any benefit to that hearing sign. Staff did not receive any inquiries or comments about this, and we recommend that Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit and its associated resolution, subject to the following special conditions that are in your staff report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions for you.
Any questions for staff? No? All right. Yeah, Mr. Benedict.
There's just one house.
Correct.
Usually we see two or so, but there's just the one. Okay, cool. All right.
Good. All right. At this time then, would the applicant and/or their representative like to come forward?
Hello, Paul Zita, 7834 West Adam Avenue, Peoria, Arizona, 85382. Thank you guys very much for your consideration. Times are changing, we're actually building a model, so
That's
who knows
right.
what will happen next. You have any questions for me, or anything I can help you with?
Questions for the applicant? No? No. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you
Excited for you guys to continue to expand in our community.
very much for the opportunity.
All right. So at this time then, I will open it up to the public. Would anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing nobody, and I believe we don't have anybody on Zoom, so I will close the public portion of the agenda and bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve DSA-21-0025 for Century Complete Homes for show models at their facility on Jimmy Kerr Boulevard, Mitchell Road, and with the conditions of the staff.
I have a motion. I have a motion for approval of PSA 21-00025 and the associated resolution, and a second. They're subject to the following conditions. Any discussion? Hearing none. Natalie, would you please call the roll?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Aye.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McBride,
Yes.
Chairman Miller,
Yes. All right. Should approve. Next up. What's that? Oh. All right, next up, public hearing and consideration request by Portable Practical Educational Preparation, Inc. Conditional use permit DSA-21-00005.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thanks for reading off that name. I'll just call it PPEP. PPEP is requesting approval of a conditional use permit to allow for a special purpose fence and gate 6 feet tall located in the front yard setback at 605 West Ramos Drive. You can see the location shown below. The applicant is operating a residential facility at the existing residence and would like to construct the 6-foot block wall in the front of the home. The proposed location of the wall will be on the property line, and the applicant is stating that it will be constructed for the health, safety, and security of the disabled occupants. Per the applicant's narrative, they need to comply with the Department of Health Services. A portion of that states that all stairways, hallways, and other routes of evacuation are free of any obstacle that may prevent evacuation of a resident in an emergency. Furthermore, wheelchair egress is paramount reason for this request, and we must ensure that wheelchair egress is accessible and unobstructed. So staff's position is by adding the block wall and gate, it would seem to increase the security. However, it would also seem to present an additional obstacle that may prevent evacuation of a resident in an emergency. So the city code related to this request states that in 1752-160 residential fences, that A, no fence or wall shall be allowed in any required residential front yard which has any supporter member measuring more than 36 inches in height, and B, fences which are erected in any side yard and which run parallel or approximately parallel to the front line of the building shall be set back from the front line of the building a minimum of 5 feet. And I'll show you a diagram of that. The required front yard for this district is 10 feet from the property boundary, and it's aligned with currently with the front of the house. Staff did attempt to work with the applicant to amend the submittal by providing examples of more aesthetically pleasing fences and walls that could potentially be supported, but the applicant chose not to deviate from the original submittal. A little overview of the lot. The red is going to represent the property line. The blue represents the approximate front yard setback. The yellow is where they're proposing to put the 6-foot block wall and gate across the driveway. The green represents where the 5-foot setback from the front for your side returns would be. And then we went ahead and this is a existing picture of the house here. And that's the proposed, just kind of worked in to show kind of what it would possibly appear to be. And again, this is from Crane Street. And they're creating a block wall in front of the house, essentially securing it from all angles. So when looking at the review criteria, we look at the following 5 review criteria. We're going to cover the 2 highlighted. The first is that the proposed use will have no adverse effect upon abutting property. Staff anticipates that the wall will have an adverse aesthetic impact on the abutting properties and the neighborhood in general. And the second one is that the proposed use shall be in conformance with the general plan. The request was initiated due to a code enforcement case on the next one that we'll look at. The following general plan information is related to this proposal. Goal C12.3 states that maintain vitality of mature neighborhoods. Strategy in that is to establish targeted code enforcement programs to upgrade existing neighborhoods. In regards to notification, we met or exceeded all requirements. A sign was posted by the applicant on the subject site. Mailings were sent out and notices were in the paper. We did not receive any inquiries in regards to this proposal. In conclusion, staff recommends the commission deny DSA 210005 as a conditional use permit and its associated resolution to allow for a 6-foot tall block wall and gate located in the front setback at 605 West Ramos Drive. Do I have any questions?
Questions for staff?
Is the house automatically, it's being used now as a medical facility for handicap, older people? What's it used for?
According to the narrative, it's a residential facility for disabled. Correct.
And how long has it been there as a disabled home? How many years?
So a residential facility doesn't require anything different than a single-family home, so
Okay.
I'll let the applicant address that.
Okay.
It doesn't require any other additional permits through the city.
And the applicant didn't want to change it from a block wall to a more decorative wall at all? He was
No, they
insisted on-
chose to stay with their original submittal of a block wall.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I got a question.
Member McBride.
Yeah, is there any other residence within this neighborhood or any place nearby that has a block wall for a front wall?
I can't clarify that for certain, but it is not permitted within our code to have a block wall in your front yard. So if there is an existing wall that's there, it would not be permitted per our code.
Okay, and it's red, I believe I heard you say, was it a 3-foot height was what they're mandated, they can't go above, or 32 inches or something like that?
36 inches is the permitted height of anything in the front setback of residential.
And is the setback far enough from the sidewalk if they were to put it where they want to put it at?
So that if they were to do a 36-inch, then they could be on the property line. Anything above the 36-inch would have to be set back to where you'll see the green on the screen right there. That's the fence returns, side fence returns. That's where there's currently an existing wall at this home. Sure. And I can, yeah, it's approximately 36 inches on that photo there, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Member Benedict.
Just to address his question, I drove by this neighborhood and I don't recall seeing anything but this style of fence all the way around. Very, it was nicely done around that park.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? All right. At this time, then, I will open it up to the applicant and/or their representative. If you'd like to come forward, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Bob Milianta. I represent PEP Inc. My address is 689 West Panorama Vista Drive, Tucson, Arizona, 85704. And I think there's been some definite disinformation regarding what was just explained. And one thing that was not noted was your other ordinances that allow different types of fences. I want to refer to ordinance 17.52.160, and it says, in all parts of the city zone residential, no fence or wall shall be erected or maintained more than 6 feet in height. And so somebody has to contend with that ordinance and not the 36-inch height that was just noted. I'm sure your gentleman would like to consider all of your ordinances and not just one. The other ordinance that's applicable, 17.52.180, it says special purpose fences. It says findings shall be made that the fence is necessary to protect, buffer, and improve the premises for which the fence is intended and will not detrimentally affect adjacent properties. You talked about aesthetically pleasing detrimental effect. I don't think you have any reason to, or any evidence to prove that. If you do, I'd like to review that with you. The other objection I have is that I have a list of probably 10 properties that I would like to share with you that shows that there's 6-foot fences and fences that are in violation in that whole area. And so if anybody would like to have a copy of that, I would be happy to provide it. And so if these fences were being allowed in the past, I think then you should consider being fair with this proposal and consider a 6-foot fence for this property. Behind me, I have Montana is the resident manager. I have the clients who occupy that home and the next home that we're going to be talking about. And they should have secure, protected, and safety housing. And that's why we are proposing the 6-foot fence in that neighborhood. It not only protects them, it protects the public. And there is also, what Mr. Horn presented is that we have to also comply with the state of Arizona as far as licensing this house. And so that is one condition, one consideration that I think you need to also understand. This aesthetically pleasing fencing that you're proposing, I have not seen that in your ordinances. So if somebody can point that out to me, I would appreciate looking at it and reviewing it, because it's not in your ordinance. And so
That's in regards to our general plan, correct?
No, it's actually an association with the conditional use permit.
Oh, okay.
No, in regards to abutting property that we covered, to be able to support something like this, we felt if potentially support it, if we had an aesthetically pleasing wrought iron, something that wasn't kind of a concrete block wall, not painted, we felt that there's a potential we could have supported a product that was like that, but they chose to stay with a concrete block wall.
Okay. Sorry, I'll go back to you. I just was making sure it wasn't connected to a larger, not in the minutia of an ordinance or code, but is overall.
we're protecting these clients. And I think that that's the purpose of the conditional use permit. And I'd be happy to share these pictures of, they're either illegally permitted fences in that area, or they're legally permitted. And if they're legally permitted, I can't think of any better reason for these clients and constituents to have safe, secure, and protected property.
Do you mind referencing the first
Ordinance?
ordinance?
Yes,
I
sir.
got the second one written down, but I missed the first one.
Sure. 17.52.160.
And then the other one was .180, correct?
Let me tell you what that is. .180.
Okay.
And can I get clarification on the 160? You were referring to 160A, is that true? A? I think that section has A, B, C, D maybe under it?
I think he's referring to the initial, the beginning of the,
I am looking at the first paragraph
all right,
Okay.
before
Of that-
the letters start.
of that ordinance.
Thank you. And can you read below that? Is there an A, B, C, D below that?
There is.
Did you read those, sir?
I did.
Did you see that it referenced that no 6-foot fence in the front yard, 36-foot maximum? Did you read that?
What paragraph are you in?
That's probably D.
I read that, but I think that first paragraph,
So you read it, but
supersedes that.
you just discarded it. Okay.
No, I didn't discard it. I just think that the first paragraph was overwhelming evidence that you can go up to 6 feet on these properties. And because it is, the nature of this residential housing is not typical. It's used for a definite reason to house people who have disabled disabilities, and I think that should be considered.
So, does it, well, I'll let you complete it unless you're ready for questions. I think we kind of jumped into questions. I do have a question for you.
No, questions are fine.
You had mentioned in regards to the safety of the residents as well as the public. Have you guys had issues currently? I mean, has there been a break-in? Has there been a?
No, we've had people, how should I put this, leaving the premises in other homes. This is not the only home that we have.
Sure.
The program is called PEP Integrated Care. It's completely around southern Arizona. It's a very successful program. Like I said, it has to be licensed through the state of Arizona. And I have a description of what the program includes if anybody would like to read it.
What does that in regards to? Oh. Is that all right if people want to distribute those, can they hand them to you and pass it, or?
Sure, we'll
I
give
mean,
them to
preferably I'd
Natalie.
have it ahead of time, but,
Right, I'll take them and we'll pass them around.
okay. I feel like this is gonna be,
So while that's coming, I've got a question
Yeah.
that we could fill in.
sure, we can definitely, we've got another question here, Member Benedict.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So these two, this house, we'll stick with this house. This house right now is currently in service and has occupants and.
Yes. Matter of fact, I have
Thank you.
the house manager right here. Connie, you want to stand up? I mean, Montana, you
Well,
want to
that's,
stand up?
yeah, that's fine. I just, upon driving by this week, I should say this week, both of the gates in this picture here, both of the gates in the back were open, and I think the one to the east, I think the gate was missing. I couldn't see if the other gate was there on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Help me understand, help me understand that in relation to this request that you're making.
Explain why the gates have been open. Pardon?
Mr. Chair,
Member McBride.
Mr. Chair, I got a question. Yeah, is everyone going through paperwork that we need to look at to make any type of decisions?
Well, I'm trying to determine that. We are looking through some paperwork that is here present.
Okay.
Some of it's difficult to see or read or understand where we are,
Okay, thank you.
and so. I'm not sure.
Well, that's not your issue, though. Your issue is the open gates.
Well, yeah, that was my question is those gates either appeared to me, at least one of them wasn't there. And the other one was at least open, but I couldn't see if it was there. So I just have a question about how does that relate to?
Well, I think that's the reason why we want to obtain the conditional use permit, so we can effectively build that fence. And in the documents with the application, there is a diagram of what type of fence we would also build to contain the applicants. And so I can't explain why the gate is closed, not closed right now, but that's the purpose of us obtaining the conditional use permit. I don't manage the property, and so I really don't have an answer for you. But I will address it as soon as I get back to my office tomorrow.
And Commissioners, if it helps, I do have a picture of the other house where the wall was partially put up. That'll be in the next presentation.
Oh, in the next presentation?
Yeah.
Okay. And Member McBride, to answer your question, There's a couple homes in here that I see where there's probably what would be considered a 6-foot wall or close there too. But it looks like a couple of these, or a number of these are a little bit different circumstances, because I'm not really sure whether these are dirt roads, alleys, back entrances, some that are not even to the front edge of the house. The very first picture is actually 5-foot setback from the side of the front edge of the house, looking out towards the park, which we know would be the front yard. So a couple of these pictures are, I guess I would consider not prudent to. This is your guys' home.
Yeah, that's,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
I think it starts on something like Exhibit H. Let me tell you exactly where it starts at.
A. Says Exhibit A.
This was part of the original application, so we submitted that for information, but it starts in Exhibit E. If you take a look at Exhibit E, and that is very blatant, that fence is excessive according to your ordinances.
It's also not on the property line, right? It would be closer to the front yard setback.
So, Mr. Chair, you know, it's difficult, it's really not fair to the other two commissioners who are participating remotely, because they can't see this evidence, and if this evidence is going to influence the vote, I think it really needs to be shared with them. So I think if we're going to consider this evidence, we probably should maybe table this matter so that they can review it as well. I don't know, Mark, do you have any thoughts on that issue?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, and I don't see the pictures, but it sounds like, you know, some of them may comply with the code as currently written if they're set back far enough, some may not. I don't know what the pictures look like, but if the commissioners in person feel like it may influence their vote one way or the other, then they probably should allow the other two to see them.
That was the reason why I brought it up, was I thought it may have a bearing on what I would decide.
Sorry, I chuckled because one of these houses I know because it's my sister's house.
I mean, it's obviously, it's obviously up to the commission what they want to do. I mean, you know, how they want to handle the situation, but.
It used to be your sister's house?
What's that?
Did you say it used to be your sister's house?
No, my sister lives in one of these pictures.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if it would speed it along, I'd like to make a motion to table this one until next time.
Have a motion.
I'll second it.
We got a second. All right, so we have some discussion. Right as you said that, Mr. Member Benedict was about to say something.
I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
You said, they said that you want a block wall there.
Yes, sir.
And we have all the high schools, and they got a big wrought iron, beautiful fence sitting around the high schools to keep protection. So would you would a wrought iron fence could do the same thing and it'll look a lot prettier than a block wall? And it will keep everybody in, it keeps everybody out.
If the balusters were close enough, complying with code, I would have to take that to the CEO and see if he would accept that. But I think we should consider it, yes.
Discussion, I'm going to discuss that. I'm going to state that I think the pictures that are present I don't think paint the picture, at least in my mind, that you were hoping to paint for me. I don't have necessarily a problem tabling it if that's what the commission chooses, but I don't know that anything in here, most of these fences are less than 6 feet, are chain link or see-through or have some sort of, they're not obscuring, and so I don't know that they're.
I don't think the ordinance says anything about obscuring, and I think everything that I presented you exceeds 3 feet, which if it does, then it does not comply with your regulation.
Member Benedict?
I think certainly some of these probably some of these that I saw on my little drive around, and what crosses my mind about this is that just because there are folks out there that are not in compliance, doesn't mean that I should approve something that's not in compliance. I mean, that, that's, to me, those are a little bit separate issue, and so that's why, that's why I didn't second the motion, to be frank.
Right. So, we've had,
Let me speak one more time. I'm gonna go ahead and pull my motion to table it, because I agree with Mr. Benedict. It should go on in its own merit, and whatever defense is defense is, needless to say, of whatever the neighbors are. So I'm just gonna pull my motion.
Well, we should see if the second is
Yeah,
also
the
going to pull
second
his
is-
motion.
Member
not-
Peters, do you also remove yours, or do you want?
No, I'll remove the second.
All right, so we're back to square one. Makes life a little bit easier, I guess. No motions on the table. Any other questions for applicant? Because I need to move through the hearing process as well.
Yeah.
I guess.
I have one more.
Member Benedict.
I think Dennis started down this path. What were your objections to the alternative style walls that the staff says they have shown you?
I think the objection was that it did not provide enough, not protection, but it presents a little too much visibility for the clients. And if for some reason you had a reasonable alternative, I think we would consider it.
But what was presented was not reasonable based on that statement. Is that correct? Is that what I'm understanding? What?
I think what we presented would effectively provide more safety and protection, security for the tenants. I have a really big problem with when people find out what type of house this is, looking in and trying to maybe view if anybody's outside and actually knowing that it's a property for disabled individuals. I have a difficult time with that. I don't think that is. I don't think that's proper as far as the clients who occupy that property.
Is this common? I mean, I guess it kind of goes back to my first question of, has there been an issue? Like, do people just randomly walk into your yard and start looking in windows?
No, but they walk on the sidewalk and they view it, they look in there and they say, well, this home is for, it's not a residential property. And let's see who's walking around and let's see what the problem is on the interior. I don't like that attitude.
But it is a residential property.
It's residential property, but it's a specific residential property. It's not what you would normally have a family occupying. It's something that is for developmentally disabled individuals.
Correct.
How long you been in at this house with these patients at this house?
A year? It was completed earlier this year.
So it was completed to,
Do you have other properties in the community that have been operating?
In southern Arizona, yes.
yeah. And looking at the pictures of this house, the backyard has a lot of room, so as far as the patients could go, they got probably a lot of room to circulate and everything around in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
If you put the wall in the front and you bring the people out the front door, all they can do is look at the wall. So there isn't any pretty thing about that. So just leave them in the backyard, and it's up to you to provide security for them, and don't let them out the front door. If you can provide the same security, if you don't open and shut the gate in your driveway, you got to keep that thing locked.
Mm-hmm.
And if they get through that, it's like getting through your front door. So I don't see why the backyard isn't good enough for security.
Well,
And you got, I was looking at it, you got one front door and you got the garage door.
right.
So you only got two doors to secure. And then if they get out the back door, they're gonna be in a beautiful backyard,
And I'll pose that to the management.
you know?
At this point in time, do we have any other questions for Member Estrada?
So
help me understand. You're worried about people looking in. What about window treatments so that way people cannot look in? You know, and I get it, you know,
Sunscreen.
or some type of, because you're worried about gawkers is what it seems like to me.
Yeah, gawkers. Do we have window treatments? Do we have window treatments on that house? Yes, we do. That's already,
Because you had mentioned people looking in through the windows. So
yeah.
That's why I was
well,
asking.
And so there is window treatments on the house already.
And so, maybe for staff, can they have the 6-foot wall further back?
They actually have the 6-foot wall further back where it's allowed to go. So it's 5 feet from the front of the home, and it's going across. The front yard does not permit any 6-foot wall.
Okay. So why does it have to be so far forward if you're just worried about security and people looking at?
Well, yeah, as far as, there's not a road in the back. The road's in the front, and that's what has to be protected as far as the clients are concerned. The back doesn't have to be protected. We already know that there's a wall there. We want to protect them on the front of the property, and that's why we're requesting this type of a fence.
But I guess I'm still not understanding why it can't be further back.
Well, that's a management issue.
Okay.
I can't explain that. Whoever manages the house, I have to bring that up to the person who is the property director, the program director, and so that's something that we have to consider when we go back.
Member
Okay,
Benedict.
this is Mike McBride again. I just wanted to interrupt one more time. You just keep referring back to it's a management issue. Aren't you the representative of the management?
Not really. I'm a representative of the housing department. I'm not a representative of the program director who maintains the house for disabled individuals.
Member Benedict.
So, help me understand if I just heard you say that the description that Commissioner Dugan just gave about having, you know, that that back fence might be adequate for folks to have the space outside, and that you might present that to management?
Well, I think since you brought it up, I think that has to be considered and see what their perception of that is, sure.
Okay, so two other things, I'll come back to that. My other question is if, from what I heard you say, the alternative to the walls that you're talking about putting in the front, they would have to be, what was the correct term, opaque? Is that what you had said, that folks could not see past the front?
We think that people should be protected, and so if we had a 6-foot wall, then that would be a safety feature and protect them, and then it would they would be in a position to not be a spectacle.
Okay, so it sounds like those need to be opaque. So back to my second question with Mr. Dugan's description, then would it help you, would it help all of us if you took the time to go back to management and discuss about that, if that back wall is adequate, maintaining that back wall is adequate for what's needed? If so, then we could table or
Yeah, that would,
otherwise, I mean.
I think that in the spirit of cooperation, I think, and also as if you have these types of questions, I think it's logical that we bring back the feedback and talk to them and see what their position is, of course.
Does the commission think that would do us any good?
I think if we bring it back the next time, if he brings back someone who can answer these questions, would probably be very beneficial to all of us, instead of him having to run back and forth asking questions.
So,
What the biggest issue here is, it isn't that, it's against the policy of the city of Casa Grande, and if If we approve a fence here, whether a wrought iron fence or anything to make it pretty, then somebody else can come to this meeting and say, hey, I want a fence in front of my front yard. And I just don't want that to happen, so I don't think we should wait. It's just, hey, last thing I want is somebody coming to me and say, hey, if they can do it, I can do it. That's bullshit.
That's why I presented the pictures. It's already been done.
All right,
Mr. Chairman. I'm in a city meeting in the
Member
town of
Peters?
Casa Grande. We're doing a project down there.
I'm still
And the guy
having, I'm still not understanding
I just
whether
swore.
the purpose of this fence is to keep the
Hey,
residents in.
hang on
or
one
the
second.
public out.
We've got
I just
some
started swearing.
background noise happening here. We got multiple people talking, I think. Okay, Member Peters?
Yeah, I'm just having a hard time understanding whether the purpose of this is to keep the residents in or the public out. If it's to keep the public out, I believe that blank wall going all the way across there is gonna be a perfect easel for graffiti.
Yeah. I would agree to that. I've seen a lot of that in my neighborhood.
I didn't hear what you said, sorry.
He just, having a big blank canvas for graffiti
Oh.
on the front of the property is, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else for the applicant? Any other questions? Okay.
Larry, you have anything you want to say?
Just one part. It is just more as much for their security when they come out the front, and we're loading them up, going places.
Sir,
They know
sir,
they're not.
sir, hang on. You need to come to the podium.
So we
You
can,
need to identify yourself.
Sure.
And
My
then,
name's Larry Lozier. I live at 12613.
he's like,
We all work together.
okay.
Human services, we have to do this. I'll start over. Larry Lozier. I live at 12613 North Stone Ring Drive in Marana, Arizona. I work for PPEP. I'm in property and transportation. So the biggest part of this is when they come out the front, and they can use the front, but then we need to contain them. That wall there, like you see on that from before we ever took it over, that house never looked like that. That won't slow up some of our clients. Like in one particular one, I can think of, it has autism, he can outrun most of the staff for 2 miles. So we need somewhere to contain them sometimes and make sure they're safe. Because we sure hate to have them, you know, and the reason we haven't fixed the gate, why would we put money into fixing a gate till we know what we're doing with it?
that's fair.
Okay.
That's a legitimate answer there. I do have one question for you though, dealing with transportation, because you guys also have a location within the community that is an office space, right? Or within an office.
Over on Treckle?
Yep, I used to have an office right over there.
Yep.
And so at this point, when you would have the clients or the residents are also coming in and out of there, or is that just staff?
Out of the Treckle one?
Yeah.
Right now it's closed till the 15th of March. It's been open, been closed, you know what's going on.
Sure, yeah, because of
We're
the
supposed to
pandemic.
reopen that for daytime activities, I was told the 15th of the month.
And so at that point, though, you got the same issue as getting them from in and out of a house or in and out of a public building.
Right, but we have more staff there at a given time, and
Okay,
sometimes, you know, you have one staff member there and 3 members, and you're loading one on, with a wheelchair on a handicap van.
that's
So,
fair. Additional staff, this suffices for the answer, I appreciate it. I just wanted some clarification, understanding the multiple sites and kind of differences between the two. So thank you.
My response to that is, I used to live on Manor Drive in Casa Grande here, and they put a special needs house right next door to me, and there were some issues on that. And so there was an easy problem to solve about security, is they just drove the car in the garage, put the garage door down, they put the people in the garage, and then they backed out.
Well, that'd be
Problem
great
solved,
if you could
because
load
we demanded it. So all you have to do is drive your car in that garage,
It's a
put
one-car
the
garage.
person in the car in the garage, and back out of the garage, and your security problem is solved, because that's all the security problem on 1193 East Manor Street in Casa Grande was solved.
That's fine.
I think the issue is with this one, that garage, your guys' vehicles, transportation vehicles are not fitting in that garage because they're big buses, right?
Oh.
If, for the most part.
Yep. Either they're a 15-passenger van or they're a 9-passenger wheelchair lift
Right.
type bus, yeah.
Yeah, like basically a bus, a little
Yeah.
mini bus. I've
Yeah.
seen them, yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're not fitting in there, but, all right.
Oh, the problem with that is, instead of spending money building a fence, build a garage a little bigger.
Build it, add on to the house, I'm just kidding. All right, so any other questions? I'd like to, for the sake of everybody's time. I appreciate it, thank you. Thank you for coming up with some clarification. Are you coming back up?
We're keeping her busy.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry.
Any more questions?
I think we're all right on questions. So I'm gonna open it up to the public as well. They could speak in that portion. She's like, no, I don't wanna come up. I'm sorry not to call you out, but she's like, no, I'm not coming up.
We're scared of this place.
All right, thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, I will open it up to the public. Anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing nobody, I will close the public portion, bring it back to the commissioners.
Chairman, just, do you guys need any clarification on the ordinances, or do you guys got a grasp on it?
That's a great
Because
question.
he brought up a lot of ordinances, so.
He did. I think I'm understanding that there was multiple parts to that ordinance, which it stated 6-foot block wall or 6-foot wall, but then further down created the exclusions of that, one of those being a front yard.
Right.
Is that correct?
And then the second ordinance that he
Special
spoke to
purpose
is the
fence?
special purpose fence, which allows them to ask for conditional use permit, which is why we're here. So just to let you know, in 1752-160, it would be an outright prohibition. But the
Sure.
thing that allows them to be here is that second ordinance, which is a special
Is the
purpose fence.
.180?
Right, exactly.
Gotcha.
Is that, just want to make sure, unless you guys have anything.
That's correct, and the conditional use permit has review criteria, one of which is no adverse impact, which is where staff discussed the adverse impact on the surrounding properties in the neighborhood with the big wall.
When I think, so the other issue that I think I have is that conditional use permit carries with the property. So they sell this property a year from now and I buy it as a residential person, I can move in there and all of a sudden I can start storing all kinds of stuff behind that block wall because you can't see it because the conditional use permit allows me to keep it there. Unless we get really weedy and detailed on how that conditional use permit actually transpires, but legal doesn't like it when we do that kind of stuff.
That is true. There's one other thing I'd like the commission to keep in perspective is the use of this home is as a residential facility, which means it's not, we didn't grant group home approval, right? The state law and our local ordinance says that if you're gonna have 6 or less residents, we have to treat this home just like every other single-family home from a building, zoning, and fire code perspective. So we just apply the normal single-family rules to this home, which means we expect it to look like a regular single-family home and not a group home, because that's how we regulate it. So just want to have you keep that in perspective.
All right. Thank you for the clarification. Commission members?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we deny DSA-21-0005 a commission used to build a 6-foot block wall gate located at the setback at 605 West Ramus Drive.
Second.
I'll second that.
You got beat out, Mr. McBride.
My old age.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I think,
Just to be clear, it was to deny, right?
Yes.
I don't know if everybody heard him because the microphone was a little bit further away, but I just want to make sure everybody heard
Okay.
him out here.
So, so currently you have a motion and a second to deny. It's presented by staff.
and I just want to point out if, if they want to come back with, proposal that meets some of the criteria that we've talked about, that's a new application, could be considered, correct?
I'm looking that one up real quick because there may be a timeline, a time restraint on the denial of a conditional use permit, but I'd have to look it up real quick.
They also have the ability to appeal that, but, okay.
And if there is a time, then period, and they waited that time period, they could resubmit for another conditional use permit. I think in general, staff would probably have the same position
Right.
because of many of the points you referenced tonight.
Yeah. Yep.
So those that are on Zoom, I'm just waiting to see if we can get a confirmation on timeline from legal prior to any official vote to not create a further adverse effect on the applicant. I was gonna start doing the Jeopardy song for you, but I thought that would be me.
Okay, so it's 6 months. So no application for a conditional use permit which has been denied wholly or in part shall be resubmitted for a period of 6 months from the date of the order of denial, except on grounds of new evidence or proof or change of conditions found to be valid by the commission.
Okay, so if we said, hey, like we stated, as stated by Member Benedict, if they came back with something that would be considered reasonable based on conversation here, then we could potentially approve to hear it sooner.
That would be an interpretation.
There'd be an interpretation by them. Like if they came back and just said, no, we're gonna paint to match the air. Well, I'm just making stuff up, so don't. But that's not enough. But if they came back with something to say, hey, I know it's 36 inches, but we'd like a 4-foot wall, and we'll keep the wrought iron railing or something, that might be substantial enough for staff to say, yeah, we're willing to bring this back, and that would be acceptable.
Yes, if they came back with a different design, a different request, we probably would find it was enough change to schedule it for another hearing.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Sounds good. So we've got that clarification. So with that,
More of a question, I guess.
more discussion?
So,
All right.
yeah, more of a discussion. Rather than voting on it, what if we table it? Because I'm almost sure that they're gonna come back with something else. Table it for now and let them work with staff and see if they can come up with something.
Now we're back to the first
I
motion.
think we should just go ahead.
But, yeah.
Let's
Sir,
just
I'm
vote
gonna
on it.
need you to step down because we're during discussion of an open agenda item or a motion that's on the floor.
Mr. Chairman?
I call for question.
Yeah, I
Okay, the
think-
question's been called. Natalie, please call the roll.
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Yes.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McBride.
I'm voting to deny the request. Just want to make sure I said it the
Yes,
right way.
that is correct. The motion is to deny.
Okay, then, yes. Yes, then.
Chairman Miller,
Yes. So we have approved the motion to deny. That's not a perplexing conversation. But I'm hoping that with just for you guys, right, obviously, we're trying to leave it open for you guys to be able to come back. We've got another agenda item following the same thing.
That's correct.
All right.
We'll run through it relatively quickly because I think we've covered a lot of it. So I'll show you the location is 404 North Roosevelt. You can see it's on the south side. This one was actually brought to us by a code enforcement case. It's the same submittal by the applicant. And here you can see, this is the wall that they had constructed there that was flagged by code enforcement. And you can see it's partially built.
Gotta cover the condition, the criteria.
Yeah. So when looking at the review criteria, we cover the following 5 items. We're going to cover the 2 highlighted here, that the proposed use will have no adverse effect upon abutting property. Staff anticipates the wall will have an adverse aesthetic impact on the abutting properties. A neighbor had called in a complaint for the existing block wall in November of 2019, concerned that the wall would not be allowed, and that's what prompted the code enforcement case. And the second is that the proposed use shall be in conformance with the general plan. The request was initiated due to a code enforcement case. The following general plan information is related to this proposal, and again, it's goal C 12.3, maintain vitality of mature neighborhoods with the strategy of establishing targeted code enforcement programs to upgrade neighborhoods. Again, all notification efforts were met. And so in conclusion, staff recommends the commission deny DSA 21-00004, a conditional use permit and its associated resolution to allow for a 6-foot tall block wall and gate located in the front setback at 404 North Roosevelt Avenue. Any questions on this one?
The only question that I have is, the original complaint happened in 2019, and we're hearing it in 2021?
That's correct.
Okay. Just making sure, just clarifying that fact.
Yeah. So, they didn't get a permit or anything for the wall that's up there, correct, Joe?
Fence permits are,
You didn't get
you
a
don't need a,
permit to put the existing wall that they put up there, correct?
We only require fence permits for fences or walls over 6 feet in height, because they don't need a building permit unless they exceed 6 feet.
Okay. So this was against code to build that fence there, correct?
Pardon?
This was against?
Yes, this is a code violation,
Okay,
yes.
so if we approve, deny this, it's like you said, you want to deny it, are you going to make them tear down the wall?
Yes.
Okay. And the neighbor wants to make them tear down the wall, correct?
I haven't talked to the neighbor, so I don't know what the neighbor
Well, there was
wants.
a neighbor that filed the complaint.
I assume so.
Okay.
any other questions for staff?
Just wanted to clarify something else on the last one. You can't park in DG in front of the house, can you?
No, there would have been a code violation as well, Member McBride.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah,
Member Benedict?
sorry, bud.
That's all right, you're good.
So
That's what we're here for.
would the code enforcement have stopped from putting the gate, a gate across the driveway?
You mean when we initiated the code enforcement case, I'm sure that my code enforcement officer gave a notice and order, a code violation notice that probably said, remove the wall. That's probably what the note order said. So, we probably would have advised them to stop construction, don't go any further until they come seek your approval for it.
And, can I go ahead?
Yeah,
Okay.
by all means.
Don't want to run over you.
floor is yours,
Don't want to
man.
run over you, boss. And at the time of the complaint, this wall was completed, as far as we know?
The picture that you're looking at there is part of the code enforcement complaint.
So it's been a year.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that was the picture taken by the code enforcement officer.
Right, thank you.
Any other questions? Excuse me.
Sadly,
A dangerous environment to do that. So at this time, then, I will grant the applicant and/or their representative the opportunity to come forward. I know we've done this once, but since it's a new agenda item, you get the opportunity to come forward.
It's the same issue. I think you addressed it initially, so I don't think there's much I can add to it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Question, yeah. Member Benedict, for him or for him?
But then I don't know who.
Well, ask the question.
I don't know who should be who should answer. The applicant should answer. I don't know who that would be. So current time, this is an active, there are folks in that facility and it's active.
In both facilities.
Okay. So yeah, again, I guess I'm confused about this is for their security. So the front's open. Okay, maybe that's because the construction got stopped. The back gates were open. Yeah. Yes, sir.
You went past the property?
Yes, sir.
I
Would that be what? All right, thank you.
Any other questions? No? All right. At this time, then I'll open it up to the public. Anybody from the public? Seeing nobody, I'll close the public portion and bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make another motion to deny DSA-21-00004 for a conditional use permit to allow for a 6-foot block wall and gate located in a setback of 404 North Roosevelt Avenue.
Second.
I'll see. Just slow, man.
So a motion and a second to deny the conditional use permit and associated resolution. Any discussion? Hearing none. Natalie, would you please call the roll?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Aye.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McBride,
Yes.
Chairman Miller.
Yes. All right. So I'll wrap up with, I'm hoping, at least through the conversation from legal and kind of what we had, that you guys will have the opportunity to bring or have some conversations with staff, and if it warrants, hopefully we'll be back in front of us that can find a common ground from everybody. All right? Thank you, guys.
Support what you're doing.
All right. Next agenda item, public hearing and consideration of request by the City of Casa Grande, DSA 21-00016, zone change from urban ranch to general industrial.
All right. The City of Casa Grande is requesting a zone change from urban ranch to general industrial I-2 for approximately 1,062 acres of land generally located south of Maricopa Casa Grande Highway between Burris Road and Bianco. You can see it highlighted in purple below. The site is currently in the process of being annexed into the city and is scheduled for a city council hearing on April 5th. The purpose of this request is to align that zoning with the annexation with regards to the timing. So if approved tonight, the zoning will be presented to council on that same date as the annexation. When looking at the review criteria, we look at the following criteria: that the proposed use shall be in conformance with the general plan. First one is that the action is consistent with the city's general plan, including the goals, policies, and applicable elements. Among other items, this request supports the following goals in the general plan. It's located in our Phase 1 primary growth area, and the requested zoning of general industrial I-2 is appropriate in the manufacturing and industry land use category. Second criteria is a rezoning conforms to the general plan if it proposes land uses, densities, or intensities within a range of identified uses of the general plan. Again, the request for a zone change to I-2 is an allowable and appropriate land use within the general plan category. And then number 3 is that the proposed zone change is necessary and proper at this time to meet the land use needs of the residents of the city. As mentioned, this zone change is in conjunction with a proposed annexation. The purpose of the annexation and zone change is to facilitate the growth of future industrial users. This zone change will also expand the industrial corridor along Maricopa-Casa Grande Highway. In regards to notification, we met all or exceeded all notification requirements. No comments were received on this request. In conclusion, staff recommends the commission forward a recommendation of approval of the zone change request from urban ranch to general industrial with the following condition. In accordance with section 17.68.550 of the zoning code, the property owner or owners shall dedicate the necessary right-of-way in accordance with city standards for Maricopa-Casa Grande Highway, Burris Road, and/or Clayton Road at the city's request. Do we have any questions?
Questions for staff? Just for giggles, questions for the applicant? Sorry. All right. No questions? All right. Anybody from the public? Open it up to the public. Seeing nobody, I will close the public portion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
By all means, Member McBride.
Yeah, I'd like to, for the commission to forward a recommendation of approval of the zone change request, DSA 21-00016 from Urban Ranch to General Industrial with the listed conditions.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Natalie, would you call the roll?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Yes.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McBride,
Yes.
Chairman Miller,
Yes. Caught me in the middle of the yard. All right. Next agenda item, public hearing on a request by Lucid Motors, DSA 21-00021, major site plan for Phase 2.
All right, thank you. Lucid Motors is requesting approval for a major site plan to allow for Phase 2 of the Lucid Motors manufacturing facility on 496 acres located at 317 South Thornton Road. You can see it, the location of the site there. Looks a little different now, though. A little bit of overview. The first phase of the project included 2 buildings comprised of approximately 820,000 square feet and associated support structures for utilities, waste management, security, and storage. Phase 2 is proposing a 2.4 million square foot expansion. The expansion will consist of the following: the body and white expansion, a stamping plant, general assembly, powertrain plant, general warehousing, and auxiliary structures. Just a quick overview of the site plan. In the blue highlighted there is Phase 1. Phase 2 will have the stamping plant on the north portion of the site, the body and white expansion, general assembly, the powertrain plant, general warehousing, and then auxiliary structures and uses. When looking at the review criteria, we look at the following criteria. It's all covered in your staff report. For tonight's presentation, we're going to just concentrate on the highlighted aspects. The first one is the impact of the plan on the existing and anticipated traffic and parking conditions. So they did provide a traffic statement for this submittal, and all traffic improvements will be completed in accordance with the development agreement, and the final TIA. The city traffic engineer and the project traffic engineer are continuing to work closely together to ensure that all required improvements are addressed. Additional collaboration will be required as the project moves forward, just due to the scale and scope. Per the development agreement, though, the city and county will be jointly responsible for improvements to Thornton Road, including 4 lanes of traffic and a 10-foot multi-use path or sidewalk on the west side. Thornton Road improvements will be completed from I-8 to Gila Bend Highway based on employment numbers provided by Lucid. The design for the Thornton Road expansion is currently underway, and construction will begin in accordance with the terms set by that development agreement. In addition, the city will also be responsible for limited improvements to Selma Road, as some of the Selma Road improvement responsibilities have been partially reassigned to portions of the Phase 1 Peters Road improvements. Next thing to cover is the pedestrian vehicular ingress and egress. So Phase 1 improvements included 2 entrances, accessing the employee parking areas along Thornton Road, and an entrance along Peters Road for delivery and truck traffic. Phase 2 is going to add 2 vehicle entrances along the Selma frontage and 4 along Thornton. Traffic controls are still being worked out and will be further analyzed in conjunction with future site development permit submittals in accordance with the final TIA that we get. So staff has requested the applicant extend pedestrian sidewalks connecting the facility to Thornton Road, where that 10-foot sidewalk's to be planned. Next item that we'll cover is the building location and height. The location of the buildings meet all setbacks. The height of the stamping facility is actually proposed to be 83 feet with an adjoining stairwell that's at 96 feet. That exceeds the 75-foot maximum height as permitted in the I-2 zone district. However, the city code, section 1752-250 states that stair penthouses are exempt from height limitations. And then D is that structures where the manufacturing process requires a greater height are exempt from this title. So Lucid performed and provided an analysis of the additional height, confirming that the building meets the above criteria and is considered exempt from the zoning height requirements in this case. In regards to landscaping, a preliminary landscape plan was submitted with this application. The plan will need to be amended to provide additional landscape area and materials as required if the height of the building exceeds 60 feet in height, which is the base elevation of the I-2 zone district. If you go above that, you would need to add an additional landscape area of 10 additional feet to the street frontage landscape areas. That takes it from 15 to 25 feet. And then you do have to add 1 tree and 3 shrubs for every 30 feet of linear frontage. The supplementary landscape materials will also help soften the bulk and scale of the project and improve the overall aesthetics along the abutting roads. And you can see they'll just add it to most likely the frontage. That's a clip of the Thornton Road frontage. In regards to notification, again, we met or exceeded all requirements. We did not receive any inquiries in regards to this proposal. In conclusion, staff recommends the commission approve the SA 21-00021, a major site plan for Lucid Motors Phase 2, with the following conditions. We'll have the applicant amend the major site plan to address the following items: extending the pedestrian sidewalks, providing additional landscape as mentioned, address all technical corrections that were noted in the review, and then provide 2 hard copies of the plan. And then number 2, at the time of site development and/or building permit submittal, provide or address the following items: meet all the fire review comments regarding the fire flow, provide finalized traffic impact analysis, and provide geotechnical reports reflecting specific building locations for caissons and vertical load. Any questions?
Does this mean fire gets a bigger truck?
Yeah, fire was included on the review, and especially in regards to the height.
like, man, we get to buy a new truck.
We do have trucks that can reach 100 feet.
Oh, okay.
This doesn't go to city. When we approve it, it doesn't have to get the city council approved, right?
No, this one would, the major site plan would not go to city council. This is in your hands.
Got it.
All lands on you.
Yeah, isn't it wonderful?
No pressure.
Member Benedict.
So maybe I'm revealing my ignorance, and I didn't catch it. What is a body in white?
Well,
Hang on.
yeah.
We'll get to you in just a second. Let's ask some questions of the staff, and then I'm sure we can get to a bunch of really interesting stuff from you guys.
He'll know more about that than me.
Any questions for staff? Your only question?
wanna know
For
what
this-
body in white
Okay,
is.
that's fair, all right. So at this time then, would the applicant and/or their representative like to come forward?
Good evening, Chairman and members of the commission. Mike Boyke, Lucid Motors, Director of Manufacturing, Head of Arizona Operations. And we are very excited to be here again. So it seems like yesterday we were here doing phase 1, and now we're off to a much larger project. Happy to answer any questions you might have, and if I can't, my technical staff will.
Awesome. So I think the first question,
Body in white.
Body in white.
Okay, so the first step of our process, when we stamp the parts, and right now we're gonna put a stamping press finally in here for phase 2. We stamp all the parts, and then we put all the parts, we glue them, rivet them, all together. When we put that shell of the body, that's called the body in white. So we put all the parts, a couple hundred parts together, we get a big shell, and then once that's called the body in white, and then we head over to paint shop. And then we'll paint the car. Once we paint it, then we send it on to General Assembly. We put all the parts on it. We got a lot of different things going on, sub-assemblies in the process, the powertrain, the battery, all done. The sub-assemblies, they'll also be put in the General Assembly area. And the big part of this phase 2 is a huge General Assembly area. Massive.
sure, it looked like it. It was a pretty good sized building based on the size of building you got out there, and then looking at it from an aerial. It's a pretty good sized building.
Yes.
So does that explain your body in white?
It's good to me as it did to you.
There you go, man. You should learn something every day, and you just learned something, all right?
I did.
Remember Dugan?
When we did phase 1 is primarily for a painting plant, I guess, from my understanding. And is it because we've kind of been told that, at least on your grand opening, that you're going to try to make a car or two by the first of this year. And from my understanding, is that a temporary assembly plant that you got there now? Are you planning?
No,
No, it is not.
No, those buildings stay there forever. Those will, so the plan is an expansion plan.
Okay.
So the paint shop and the body shop, the body shop we're gonna expand, but the paint shop stays there.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So basically, you can't start making the cars until you get this phase 2 done, correct?
No, that's not.
You guys are ordering them in right now, or bringing them in from somewhere else? The
No,
stamped
we're
parts?
making, so just to make sure that paint shop right now, as it is today, because we're a lower volume, the general assembly portion is in the first floor of that paint building.
Okay,
We paint on the second floor.
okay.
So now when we expand to higher volumes, we need a much bigger general assembly area.
Okay.
All right, so we're doing the same stuff that we'll be doing in phase 2, except we'll be doing stamping also.
Okay. And so when will you start selling cars out of the phase 1 project?
As soon as we possibly can.
You
Boy,
haven't
that is a
pre-ordered?
great
We're,
answer.
we're actually selling them right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you can pre-order one, you haven't done that yet?
Man, I want to take
We're
something,
selling them
I
right
can
now.
take something good.
Leave them a card of your salesman on your way out.
Yeah, lucidmotors.com. There you go. Yes, you do.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? No? Awesome. Well, thank you for being here.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, so this time I will open it up to the public. Would anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Can you come up
Sir,
to
can
the,
you come to the podium
come-
and give us your name and address and?
My name is Garvin Jones. My address is 20177 West Summer Highway. And I have 20 acres just across the canal there behind you. I'm willing to sell.
what has just happened to our public hearing? All right, it's not.
Good evening, Commissioners. John McGuire, 1748 North St. Francis Place. I know this meeting turned out to be a little longer than originally planned. Typically, it often does, but I did want to get over here and just say two quick things. First of all, obviously, I'm very appreciative of everything Lucid Motors has done for the community so far. Already, we're seeing the tangential benefits. There are supporting businesses moving into the industrial area as we sit here today that are going to have hundreds of jobs related to those that are not direct Lucid jobs. And I expect more of those to come soon, so that's a great thing. That's exactly what the city people hoped for when this all started several years ago. And then secondly, I want to take a minute and commend Joe. He has had quite a couple of months here, trying to get this done and a couple other things. The last item you just heard, all in a very compressed time frame with lots of complications. And I've spoken with him, just on the side a little bit, and he has definitely put in some time recently to make this happen. And I'm sure Lucid appreciates his work. And
I second that motion.
So thank you very much to the city staff and Joe in particular for this. And I hope you approve it, of course.
You shouldn't try and sway the commission during public comment. All right, so with that, nobody else from the public, I will close the public portion and bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to recommend that commission approval of DSA-21-00021 for a major site plan for Lucid Motor Phase 2 with the following conditions of the staff.
I'll second. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Natalie, would you please call the roll?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Happy to say yes.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yep.
Vice Chairman McBride,
Yes.
Chairman Miller,
Yes. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry we made you wait so long.
All right. Last but not least, public hearing on the request by Mark Reddy of RVI Planning, DSA 20-00192 for a zone change, and DSA -20-00191 major site plan.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, as you introduce this item, it is known as the bungalows at Cottonwood and Treckle. There's two applications being requested. The first is a zone change from B2, which is our general business zone district, to a PAD, which is a planned area development zone. And the request is specifically for a PAD to accommodate multiple single-family rental dwellings on a single 16.4 acre parcel. You may be familiar with this concept as a similar zoning request was in front of you last month for a different location by a different applicant. In addition to the zone change request, there's also a request for approval of a major site plan for the development of this zone district. It would entail the construction of 174 individual rental dwellings, which is about a density of 12.2 dwelling units per acre. These individual rental dwellings will be both 1 and 2 stories, 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. They range in size from 726 square feet to 1,586 square feet per unit. And they're also providing individually screened private outdoor living areas that, depending on the size of the unit, range from 152 square feet to 429 square feet. They're also providing a central clubhouse amenity, which also includes a pool. On the screen here, you see 2 examples of a single story and a 2-story unit. This gives you a closer glimpse of the layout of their proposed site. On the top is their configuration, or is a typical configuration of the screened outdoor living areas, and their proposal for a cluster-style development. One thing to note about single-family rental product is it's really a unique hybrid. It's not quite an apartment complex where you have people living above you and below you and immediately attached to you to the left and right, but it's also not quite a single-family residential development, although they are individually standalone dwellings. It sort of functions more like multifamily because you have multiple dwellings on one parcel, and you don't have that traditional layout of a typical single-family residential development where you have homes lining all fronting along a street. This would be a gated community under a managed property management scenario. So in that regard, it's like an apartment complex as well. Below is an image of their planned clubhouse. It has a farmhouse theme. First, I want to specifically talk about the requested zone change from B2 to PAD. So in the B2, as it's currently zoned, it allows a variety of uses: retail, liquor store, dine-in restaurants, offices, hospitals, banks, RV storage, and auto dealership. Across the other side of Treckle is also B2, so that gives you an idea of the types of uses where Safeway is located. And with the approval of a conditional use, this zoning would allow fast food restaurants, car washes, and other uses such as like a gas station and tire sales, mounting, and repair. The request is to change that 16.4 acre area to become a residential planned area development. And planned area developments are customized zone districts where uses and development standards different from standard zone districts can be proposed, subject to the approval of Planning Commission and City Council. The bungalows planned area development would be a residential land use at a medium density, beholden to PAD residential design standards. When you look at this zoning map, I do want to point out that to the north of the proposed zone district lies a commercial designated area between it and O'Neill Drive, and also to the east between it and Pueblo Drive is designated already for multifamily. So in looking at the surrounding land uses and zone districts, staff feels that a medium density residential product is a good fit here, and there's technically more intense uses that lie between it and the single family residential area to the north and to the east. When reviewing zone changes, it is subject to review criteria, and in your staff report, each one of these criteria are addressed more thoroughly. But for tonight's presentation, I'm just going to talk about the 3 highlighted items. The first one I sort of already touched upon on the previous screen regarding relationship of the plan elements to conditions both on and off the property, regarding land use compatibility and the surrounding adjacent land uses and zoning designations. But I also want to point out the fact that it's located on the corner of 2 arterial roadways. So having a higher density development or commercial development is appropriate here. And they are proposing a 20-foot setback from structures to all property lines. And the property lines will be screened with masonry walls on all 4 sides of varying fencing types. There's some portions that will have view fencing. There's other portions that have what's known as a theme wall design, etc. They've also included within their planned area development proposal standards regulating the size and placement of accessory structures and shade elements in the private enclosed outdoor area, which staff found particularly important for those units as seen from Cottonwood and Treckle. With regard to conformance to the city's general plan, the site is located within the neighborhood's general plan land use category. On sites of 25 acres or less, there's a density that's allowed up to 18 dwelling units per acre. This proposal is on a 16.4 acre site, and its density is 12.2 dwelling units per acre. So it is well within conformance of what's permitted within the neighborhood's general plan category. Also, I want to refer to one of the goals in the 2020 general plan, goal C15.4, and it basically talks about there being a goal to direct growth to areas which provide for the most sustainable, efficient, and cost-effective use of infrastructure. And the development of this site is considered infill because it relies on infrastructure already in place and readily accessible. Both Treckle and Cottonwood have been developed per its respective half-street profiles. There's sufficient infrastructure in the roads such as water and sewer. And this reduces miles traveled by residents and resources provided by the city if this development were to be proposed in a remote area. The third criteria I want to talk about is conformance to the city's zoning ordinance. So this PAD would be subject to the 2003 edition of the Residential Design Standards for Planned Area Developments. This was a guide that was approved and adopted by City Code in 2003 that ensures that residential development meets certain design standards that speak to open space allotment, front yard landscaping, lot space sizes and widths, side yard setbacks, and a requirement for a specific number of house plans and colors. The PAD design standards allow the Planning and Zoning Commission and Council to consider alternative designs from some of the requirements if the applicant can demonstrate that the proposed alternatives achieve the same goals of diversity, creativity, and sustainability sought for residential PADs. The PAD design standards provide 4 potential exceptions, and staff believes the following 2 apply to this request. And these exceptions basically allow the applicant to come forward to request alternative design standards. And the 2 exceptions that staff feels are being met with this is the fact that it is a proposed infill housing development, and that the development proposal is so unique that strict conformance with the requirements would be counterproductive to achieving the diversity and creativity and sustainability sought in the PAD. As I mentioned, this is a unique product because it's really not quite a traditional single-family residential development, even though they are individual single-family dwellings, but they're all rented and they're all managed by one property management company. So it also sort of fits into the concept of an apartment complex. So the applicant is requesting modification to several of the design standards found within the 2003 PAD residential design standards. Section 1A number 2 is being sought for a deviation, and that speaks to single-family lot and manufactured home space sizes. It reads that no single-family lot or manufactured home space shall be less than 6,000 square feet, and there's to be a minimum of a 55-foot lot width required for all single-family lots and manufactured home park spaces. There's also a requirement essentially that says that for every lot or space that's less than 6,000 square feet in area, an equal number of lots or spaces that are at least 8,000 square feet in area shall be provided. So the applicant contends that, that would be true if this were more of a traditional single-family residential development. But this is developed as a cluster-style project in a multifamily fashion. And what they're proposing as a requested alternative is that with 174 dwelling units proposed on a 16.4 acre site, this is essentially providing for an average of 3,500 square feet of lot area per unit. And they are not planning to adhere to a specific lot width because there is one parcel. There's one parcel with multiple dwellings. And to counter that, to counter the fact that there is a reduction in an average square feet of lot area per unit, is they're providing 30% of open space. In a traditional single-family residential development, the minimum required would be 15%. So they're doubling the open space that's required. And how that's achieved is, instead of having larger individual lots where there's large backyards, they're more of a smart-sized, private enclosed outdoor area per each unit, and the open space is sort of transferred more so into common use amenities, such as the area surrounding the clubhouse and pool. Section 1A number 3 is also proposing an alternative design standard. Number 3 within section 1A states that conventional single-family residential zone district setbacks shall be used. And that would normally mean that you'd provide an area between your house and your neighbor's property that's at least 10 feet wide. They're requesting a minimum separation of buildings of 10 feet, although in many cases it'll be greater than that based on how the individual dwellings are arranged and clustered. But staff feels that this is justified because when you look at the intent behind that code requirement, there is a need to provide wide side yard setbacks for traditional single-family development, because in that type of development, you're going to inherently have a larger backyard where you would have the potential for a swimming pool or for additional parking or the creation of accessory structures, where providing access to that backyard is important. Although this development is proposing to provide screened private outdoor living areas, they're not really like the traditional backyards. They really more so serve as patios. And so having generous amount of space between the buildings isn't as important. However, providing a minimum of 8 feet and based on how the different units will be arranged will still help achieve the provision of light and air into the respective units by having that spacing. They're also requiring an alternative design standard to Section 2A, which is the mandatory PAD residential architectural standards. So you may be familiar with my many a presentation where I come forward to you with housing product requests by different builders. Really, the intent is for the PAD to set forth the housing product. The only reason why we come forward to you with housing product after the fact is that those individual PADs say, well, we have no idea what houses are going to be built here. That will have to be subject to a separate approval at a different time when a home builder comes forward with plans. So this is an opportunity to actually review and consider housing product as part of these requests. But the PAD residential design standards require a minimum of 5 floor plans, each with 3 distinct elevations and a minimum of 5 color schemes. They're requesting an alternative, but it's fairly close. They're providing 5 floor plans with 2 elevations. One of their elevation styles is Craftsman, and the other is Spanish in nature. And they're also meeting the color scheme requirement, where they're providing 10 color schemes. So this is going to do a lot in providing a nice mix and diversity, a different style of homes. And another thing that is well done with this proposal is the fact that they're providing both 1-story and 2-story homes. That really does help change up the mix of the different units. The last PAD residential design standard that proposes an alternative is with regard to patio covers. Within this section, it does require typically that the housing product provide rear or side yard covered patios or covered courtyards on every home. The applicant is requesting that this standard be deleted within the context of this PAD, but they are providing an 8-foot deep private outdoor areas, at which each outdoor area includes a tree, and each unit does provide a covered front entry, which does give the home a patio-like appearance. With regard to the review of major site plans, the review criteria is very similar to the review criteria for zone changes. So I'm going to just specifically talk about the 3 highlighted items that really pertain more to the siting of buildings and the development of the site specifically, and not so much with regard to the land use. And the first criteria that I want to talk about is the impact of the plan on existing and anticipated traffic conditions. So both Treacle and Cottonwood both have their appropriate rights of way dedicated. Per the street profiles of minor arterials, there's to be a 55-foot half street for a total of a 110-foot right-of-way. That's been achieved on the east side of Treacle Road and the north side of Cottonwood Lane. There was a traffic statement provided by the applicant and evaluated by our city traffic engineer that analyzes the amount of trips that would be generated from this type of development and the impact it would have to the roadways that would be used to serve this development. And based on the traffic statement, it had indicated that the entry into the development, which is located on Treacle Road, is to have a right turn lane constructed. And that would be constructed per a public improvement plan that comes at an administrative review type level should these requests be approved. I do want to point out that they're proposing only one primary entrance and exit into the property where the right turn lane arrow is showing, but they are providing an emergency access further north where the red arrow is. With regard to parking, if we were to look at this as a traditional single-family development, it would require 522 parking spaces for the 174 units. That's because under our parking code, it says single-family dwellings requires 2 parking spaces per unit. What the PAD proposes is the parking requirement that applies to multifamily development. And they've justified that by indicating that because this is a rental product, the nature of the tenants are living there more like a multifamily environment. They're not a traditional single-family home where the multiple occupants have multiple vehicles and there's the need for 2 parking spaces per unit. So when you look at the multifamily portion of the city code, 1 parking space is required for every 1-bedroom unit. 2 parking spaces are required for every unit that is 2 or more bedrooms. And then there's a requirement for 1 guest parking space for every 10 units. So when running that calculation, the minimum parking requirement here for the 174 units with their varied mix of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units would require a minimum of 300 parking spaces. But they're actually exceeding that for multifamily, and that they're providing 355 parking spaces. I should also point out that they're not proposing garages. And why that's important is although a garage would meet that parking requirement, you don't know for sure that people are actually parking in the garage. Some people might elect to use that for storage, or they may have a car in there that they never drive. So having open parking helps ensure that the parking spaces actually be used for spaces for parking vehicles. So it does reduce the concern of a parking issue. With regard to landscaping, this would apply to what's required for residential landscaping in the landscape code, which states that there should be 1 tree and 2 shrubs for every dwelling unit. In this case, we would know that with 174 units, there would have to be at least 174 trees. And that's easily being met because they're proposing 1 tree in each private outdoor space. Plus, there's going to be landscaping throughout the open space, including along the landscaped frontages to Treacle and Cottonwood. And within the parking areas, there's parking lot islands with landscaping. So we know that they will be exceeding the minimum requirement. A final landscape plan will be required to be provided with the site development permit. Lastly, I want to talk about screening. I mentioned on an earlier slide that they're providing 6-foot screen walls throughout the site. So there's a variety of different wall types. There's a theme wall, and then there is a builder wall, which will serve as the backyard patio walls to homes, and it too is 6 feet of masonry construction. But there's also some other wall types that do provide some view fencing in particular areas. They're coordinated in locations where the view fencing makes sense. It either is because it opens onto an open space area, and it also is provided to promote visual interest from the street in certain locations. Regarding the public notification process, it did meet all of that which is required by city code. We did send out notice to the Cottonwood Ranch Property Management Association in hopes that the HOA would be notified, because staff felt that that probably would be the area where the most concern would be generated. And there was a sign posted by the applicant. We did receive 1 comment stating that there's too much traffic and congestion already on Treacle, particularly from Cottonwood to Florence, and multifamily development would add to this congestion, and so we should not support high-density development here due to the congested roadways. Staff does recommend that Planning Commission forward to City Council a recommendation to approve the zone change request from B2 to PAD. And we also recommend that Planning Commission approve the major site plan subject to the City Council approval of the PAD. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff? Go ahead, Bill.
I have a lot of questions on, not on the zoning. The zoning is not a problem. The traffic thing. Let's go back to the road on the traffic thing here, okay?
Sure.
Let's go show, one more there, okay. So when you're turning, you're going north and you're turning right in, you're gonna have a decel lane there, correct? Okay,
Correct.
so that's the problem. That's great. Okay. On Cottonwood Lane, right now, there is not a right turn lane there. Are you gonna put a right turn lane there?
The TIA does not, or the traffic statement does not require one.
I wouldn't approve that unless that would have a right turn lane, because I go on that road a lot and it already backs up 15 cars. And with the additional traffic coming from residential areas, which you're gonna put behind this, I wouldn't be in favor of that unless you put a right turn lane there.
James, the drawing seems to indicate
does
there
look
is
like
one
it.
there.
It doesn't look, no, it looks like you cut the corner off, but a right
No,
turn lane.
no, but it
Is
looks
there-
like there's an expansion there. I
Yeah,
mean, it looks
that-
like there's an
There's gonna
angled.
be a right turn lane there.
I think
There's a
our-
right- there should be a right turn
I
lane.
think our traffic engineer is on the Zoom with us. He might be able to weigh in on that issue for you and just talk about,
That's
his
the only
review of
issue
that
I
issue.
have.
It appears.
Dwayne, could you address that issue?
Sure, this development, at the peak hour, AM peak and the PM peak, are less than 100 cars. And so, yes, there'll be a few more cars in Cottonwood and Treckle, but I don't feel it's a significant number to warrant a right turn lane there. It'd be nice to have one there, but it's not critical.
Yeah, it is critical because you're gonna have more and more traffic on Cottonwood Lane, and you need to look at the future, not as is now. That is the traffic on that road, and then you're gonna put housing divisions behind this deal, plus more housing divisions up on Cottonwood Lane, and they're gonna come down to Treckle. They're gonna come down to Treckle and take a right-hand turn, and that's gonna improve traffic tremendously. So why not put it in? It's crazy if you don't put it in there. You gotta build for the future. If you don't put a right turn lane in there now, you wish to 5 years, you wish you'd have a right turn lane there. So let's think about the future, not what's now.
Okay. Any other questions?
So one of the questions is, do 90 cars in the AM peak really enough to require them to put in a right turn lane?
Maybe you should.
I'm not saying sometime in the future we won't put a right turn lane in there, but is it really fair to have these people do it?
So,
Well, are you gonna have enough setbacks or land there, because if they build on the property there, you won't be able to put it in there?
so to clarify, we do have enough right-of-way for the right turn lane to go in the future. So there's enough vacant right-of-way. We have 110 feet total, so there is room to put the turn lane in if one's needed. The other thing we have to just sort of keep in mind is that the general policy of the city, which conforms to the legal requirement, is to require developments to install the roadway improvements that the traffic they generate requires. We can't make a development put in an improvement that's needed because of other community traffic. We can only make them make improvements that their traffic requires, which is why our traffic engineer is saying their traffic isn't really generating a high enough number to warrant a turn lane. Now, I think Commissioner Dugan's exactly right, is at some point, there's gonna be enough traffic on Cottonwood Lane that a right turn lane is gonna be needed. I think but probably what's gonna have to happen is it's gonna probably be a city CIP project to build that turn lane, because it's a community need, not driven by this particular project. But there is adequate right-of-way for that to occur. Would you concur with that, Dwayne?
Yes, I would. You said it a lot better than me as usual.
But wouldn't you think you should have this project pay for part of that?
You can't legally do that unless their traffic drives the need for it. Now, they are paying impact fees, just so you know, for roadway improvements, and the impact fees are gonna be quite high on this. It's about what, $11,000 per unit times 174 units? I can do the math, but it's a pretty big number.
Are they paying for the other right turn lane into their facility, are
Yes.
they not?
Yes.
Yes, they are.
Because that's
So
generated by their
why don't
traffic.
they add for the other one?
Because their traffic turning in requires the decel lane. That is warranted by their traffic.
I totally disagree with both of you on that issue, because I drive that road all the time. I see traffic backed up there, and it's frustrating.
Member Dugan, I think everybody agrees that the turn lane, yes, but it's not this applicant's job to fix a city problem. They only have to fix a problem that they're generating, and they're not generating that problem. As you've stated, that problem already exists.
It's
So that's like me asking you.
You don't understand, it's gonna make it worse.
But they're not generating it. You want me to make you pay for something that you're not responsible for?
170 apartments are not gonna generate it? Bull roar.
So, Member Bennett.
Okay.
I wonder if our traffic engineer could comment on the difference in the traffic for, and I know this is gonna be really rough numbers, but for this kind of a development versus a commercial retail development that this was already plotted for. Is there some way to make that comparison?
What would it be?
It's hard to give you exact numbers, but this is lower than if there was a McDonald's and a bank and all that sort of stuff in there that they would generate enough traffic where they might be required to build that right turn lane. But a development like this, when I say less than 100 trips in the peak hour, that's a pretty low number. And that anything less than 100 doesn't even trigger us to require a traffic analysis from them. However, this, as you see, it does have enough units that we felt we ought to at least have them look at this, and that's why we have the right turn lane going in.
So, in addition.
That answer your question?
I think as good as you're going to, I think so. So another thing I'd like you to comment about is it looks to me like the center median stops right in the middle of that. And how do you envision the challenges of keeping folks from trying to make a left turn across?
Perfect question.
I mean, is that what we want to do? I mean, it looks to me like that's going to be
A nightmare.
challenging. And I'd like to hear your comments on that.
Well, there is a two-way left turn lane there, and there'll be certain times of the day where you might have to wait a little bit to make a left turn out of there, but it's not nearly as bad as a lot of the places on Florence Boulevard. There's enough separation between these driveways, and we have a traffic signal at both ends. Down at Cottonwood, we have one at O'Neill, which will platoon the traffic up. That should make that left turn lane work pretty well.
Well,
the left turn out should work. There should be enough gaps to be able to make that movement.
So am I visioning this incorrectly, that center median comes all the way up, right up to that entrance?
It stops right at where the right turn arrow is. So you could essentially take a left turn out of that main entrance and head south on Treckle.
And my point is, you would have to make that left turn into the traffic lane. There is not a center lane that you could pull into.
Correct, because there's a median and there's a left turn lane into Safeway that has a median.
That's true, there's no.
It's an S median.
There's no safety zone. When you make a left out of here, you're making a left into either a left turn lane or a southbound through lane. Would that be correct, Dwayne?
Yes, and I would like to say if that does in the future become a real problem, we are looking at a raised median all down Treckle, which would stop that left turn movement out. But issues aren't big enough to do that at the current time.
I think the issue that I look at is this is, if you're looking at this based on that raised median, this is a right in, right out only. I mean, ultimately, that's what you're gonna make it, because you're just gonna extend that median. There's only gonna be an entrance for a left turn into Safeway's parking lot, and then the median's gonna start again. You're not gonna be able to make this left turn, period.
My concern is that folks are they're gonna come out of there and they're gonna turn into that, and it's gonna be, we're gonna create some danger there.
Yeah.
That's my concern.
So Dwayne used the phrase that's pretty interesting. I'm going to ask him to talk about it a little bit more. He used the phrase platooning because you have two signals here that can control the gaps in those southbound traffic. And so Dwayne, can you talk a little bit about how the signal at O'Neill and the signal at Cottonwood can actually be used to create gaps in that southbound traffic?
Sure. So we stop traffic, northbound traffic at Cottonwood. We stop southbound traffic at O'Neill. So while both of those are stopped, there's few cars going north and south. So we can time those two signals so that there is a gap in the flow of cars as they go by that intersection that gives people a opportunity to go in and out safely.
But I think that's where you run into Benedict's issue, which is that's when all of those right turns at Cottonwood.
Left turns.
No.
The left turns in is what
The
I'm
right
concerned
turns heading west on Cottonwood start flying. The right turn lane that he wants. That's when those cars
That's when
start
Dugan's-
moving. As soon as you start blocking that traffic and you're heading east-west
That's
traffic.
Dugan's thing, not mine.
I know, but now we're mixing the two up because now all of a sudden that comes into play when you're trying to platoon, right? And then they're creating an issue that you'll never recapture it. It's never gonna.
So, let me ask this then, did I hear our engineer saying that there was plans to extend that median? I mean, the center median? And if that is so.
I don't want to say, no, we don't feel there's an issue to extend that at the current time. That is something we've looked at. I'm guessing sometime in the future, we will probably want to make that raised median go all the way from Cottonwood to say O'Neill or something. But we're not at that point right now where we feel that's necessary. You know, in traffic, there's always, we can't make everything work perfectly. We can just make it work as safe as we can. And we feel that this will work okay. Will there never be any conflict? No. There will be some, but that's part of why people need to be careful when they're driving and stuff.
All right.
So I have a kind of a separate question, but it leads into this. And I'm gonna preface it with I am all for landowner rights and trying to put things where, but does it make any sense that this is just literally not right next to where the high density residential is already zoned? We have a offshoot side street that allows you to alleviate and go through the neighborhood to hit a stoplight at O'Neill, to make a right turn out to hit a stoplight at Cottonwood. Like we're shoving it into a commercial property and changing the zone when we literally have the zoning right next door or very close to or very similar to that would alleviate all of this because of existing roadways. And so that's my big concern about it. It just doesn't make sense because then all of a sudden if you get that multifamily and this, and so now we're not talking about just the extra 100 and something homes. Now you're talking about another 300 in the Cottonwood Ranch multifamily, if not more. I mean, that's a big area. And so now all of a sudden we've got lots of traffic. And so it just seems to me that this would be better suited, literally slid over one parcel into the multifamily section. Because that's the way we designed that original whole area anyways.
So remember when I talked about if a McDonald's went in there and a bank and, you know, some commercial areas, it would generate a lot more traffic than this plan is going to generate. I think this is probably the best thing we could do in this particular place. Yeah, it's going to generate a little traffic, but it's nothing like that it could if it was commercial.
Like, I look at Safeway though, because I live very near this neighborhood. I hit this section often. And it just never seemed, like, I mean, and maybe it's just Safeway and the businesses that surround there, but that parking lot is very large. It's very easy to get in and out of whichever direction I want to go. Because I can go north and hit the O'Neill stoplight. I can go south and head west. I can turn out onto Treckle and then head east on Cottonwood. I mean, it's a very well set up, and I look at it and go, even with a higher traffic volume, I think to Dugan's point, we're creating a traffic situation where it's just alleviated. I just go back to it's alleviated if we move it.
So Dwayne, back to your comment about if this was a commercial development. If this was developed commercially, it seemed to me that we probably would push for common access through that commercial piece to the north out to O'Neill, so that we, if this did develop commercially, so it would have access on both Treckle and O'Neill. Wouldn't you think that's what you would kind of push for?
Yes, definitely.
Do the commercial property and the bundle property is owned by the same owners?
Right now, it's all,
Commissioner
All
Dugan,
by one owner?
I don't think so. In fact, the multifamily piece is comprised of 2 parcels that are owned by different entities. So I don't know if the commercial parcel is owned by one of those 2 multifamily, but I know there's at least 2 different ownerships reflected in that area.
And how about the Cottonwood Ranch multifamily, behind that?
That area is actually two parcels owned by 2 separate entities. So it's not one owner who owns that entire acreage.
It seems like, to me, we'd have to work with the guy that owns the commercial property to get a road in there, correct?
cross-access easily.
Yeah, there would have to be.
But then
especially if they're under different ownerships.
And then you look at it and I would say, well then, if that's the case, and I'm gonna go major site plan, if we get the cross-access easement, then do we create another exit flow? Is there another exit onto Cottonwood? Is there another, and I don't know, I'm not a traffic genius, but I'm just literally mirroring the other side of the road that I know flows fairly well. It's also not full. There's also opportunity that there could be more traffic generated, but and I'm excited about this product, and I'm excited to get this product into our community because I think there's it's a real opportunity for housing, affordable opportunity, a different look. I just don't know why we're taking a commercial property right next to multifamily and changing it.
Perfect place for fast food restaurants.
Yeah, I could use some more fast food down around me.
But your traffic gets worse. That makes our
Yeah, but then you would
traffic
have
issues worse.
you would have O'Neill Drive that to go out on.
But we also have more latitude when we're working on the commercial piece of ingress, egress, the requirements there. We end up being able to provide more. Plus, they want it typically. I mean, most commercial properties want to develop it, so it's easy to get in and out of. Otherwise, people get frustrated and they don't come back.
That commercial property right there that's showing us, is that commercial now? That red piece?
It's commercially designated, yes.
It is zoned for that?
Yes.
All of it is. I mean, basically.
All of it is, yeah.
The bungalow is also zoned commercial.
Correct. But a point of clarification with that is currently the parcel subject to the zone change is zoned B2. And the parcel to the north, it's part of the Cottonwood Ranch planned area development, but its approved land use in that area is commercial, which more or less allows B2, but technically it's a different zone district. It's owned by a different entity.
I think Mr. Benedict is right. Coming out of there in that center part is going to be, to make a left-hand turn would be a nightmare. That's my view.
It will be nightmares,
It'll be a
that's my prediction, but it's not enough. There's lots of nightmares out there, so let's move on. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, I just want to remind us also that I believe the applicant is on Zoom and would be, I think, wants to probably say a few words anyway when we're done discussing the questions with staff.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. We'll get them there.
Move on.
Any other questions for staff?
No.
No? Member Peters, Member McBride, you guys, any questions?
No, I'm just reminiscing about the thing down across from QT.
I knew you were gonna bring that up. Okay, so then at this time, hey, let's hear from the applicant, and maybe they can give us some insight, give some additional information.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, my name is Mark Reddy. I'm the applicant. My address is 120 South Ash Avenue in Tempe. First, I want to just thank Jim for his great presentation. I thought he did a very thorough job. So we had a presentation, but I don't think we need to spend time on it because he pretty much covered everything. So full disclosure, I'm not a traffic engineer, but we did hire a traffic engineer to look at this project and do a full traffic impact statement, which was submitted to the city and was reviewed by the city's traffic reviewers. And, basically the conclusions of the traffic study are that this project does work. Line our primary entry up with the primary commercial entry across the street, the Safeway, so that they're aligned with each other in terms of offsetting turn movements. And we did that intentionally to help with the traffic situation. We are putting in a right turn lane, and the traffic engineer looked at the background traffic, looked at future traffic, and looked at the impacts of this. And their conclusions in that traffic study is that this project absolutely does work and does meet all of the traffic criteria based on the standards that are defined within the, I guess they call it AASHTO regulations in terms of the wait times for turning movements and all of those things. And so we're very confident, understand, the concerns, and we deal with traffic issues all the time, but the professionals have looked at this and they've assured us that not only does this project generate significantly less traffic than the current allowed uses of the commercial would, but that it does work and it does meet all of the traffic standards that are defined in terms of wait times and turning movements and safety. So that's really all I can say. I'm not going to convince you if you feel otherwise, but I'll just say that we did do a thorough analysis, and the professionals have indicated that it absolutely does work. So that's all I can really say on that, because I'm not an expert in the area. That's why we hired the experts to do these. I think that addresses the question. There was a couple of questions about property ownership, and the commercial piece to the north is a separate owner. It's not part of our application. We don't have any control over that. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of these projects. It's a great project that you're doing here. It's just quite unique that you're putting the two-story apartments in on these bungalows. So you're looking for more higher income clientele here, correct? Being in Casa Grande, because I assume these almost 1,500 square foot apartment complex, you'll be almost to $2,000 rent. Would I not be correct?
Well, these units range. The 1 bedrooms are about 700 square feet. The 2 bedrooms are about 1,000, and the 3 bedrooms are about 13.
13.
I don't know what the rents are going to be in Casa Grande right now. They will be based on market rates. These are very, very well-designed units. They have high-end appliances, hardwood floors, lots of windows. One of the things that makes these nicer than a traditional apartment complex is because they're detached, you have windows on all 4 sides. So you have a lot more light coming in. Each unit has its own private yard, as well as lots of common open spaces, 30% open space within the overall community, plus the private yards on top of that. So they are they yield about 15% higher rent than a traditional apartment complex would. So every market and every community is a little bit different. So I don't know what the actual rent rates will be, but they'll be typically about 10 to 15% higher than what you might see in a traditional, what we would call a garden style apartment complex, just because of the added privacy, the higher quality of the units that these provide for the residents.
And the clubhouses, would I have a rec center in there for a workout room and all that stuff in the rec center? And
There's not going to be a gym in the facility. It'll basically be a leasing office and areas for meeting space for residents to hang out. There'll be like reading rooms and things like that where they can go in. There'll be restrooms that they can use that are connected to the pool area. The pool is just behind the clubhouse, so there'll be restrooms connected. And then we typically do fire pits and barbecue grills that are all kind of clustered around that pool area. And then we have additional amenities, that are kind of centered throughout the community that you can see on the site plan. So the site plan hasn't been fully designed in terms of the amenities, but you can see that kind of linear open space that runs north-south through it. And you can see the clubhouse, the pool, and then there's some barbecue grills and fire pits and other amenities, bocce ball and cornhole boards and things like that that residents can use.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right. Well, thank you for joining us and being extremely patient as the last agenda item member.
Oh, you're welcome.
At this time, I'm going to open it up to the public. No? Okay, by all means.
Good evening again, Commissioners. John McGuire, 1748 North St. Francis. Couple things. You guys have hit on almost everything that could be thought about for this project, but I am fully in support of the type of product. These guys have, in my view, gone above and beyond some of the other things we've heard about these projects elsewhere and other things. I think staff has worked with the applicant a lot to identify some of the things that they've seen that have been issues in other cities with these projects and the applicant seems to have gone above and beyond to try to make mitigation for some of those things. I am not concerned about the volume of traffic that some has been discussed here. I just did a little bit of math. At the 100 trips per hour that the traffic engineer said at the peak hour, that's still less than 2 cars additional per minute. That's a long time. 1 minute for 2 cars, that's a long time. And I even took Chairman Miller's point to heart and did a little math with you. We added another 400 apartments into the multifamily section nearby. That's still less than 10 cars per minute. And there would also be additional traffic routes for those multifamily to the east. They can get on Pueblo to O'Neill or down to there. I do have the same concerns that Chairman Benedict has about the left turning movements, because it's not just the left turn out of this project onto Treco. At that same time, during that platooning that Mr. Eitel mentions, the people will be wanting to turn left northbound out of Safeway. And we are going to have that same type of conflict there. How bad is it? I'm a believer in a lot more medians than we have, but it's not a very popular public opinion. The people don't like the medians at all, but I think we should have more of them all over the place, including on Florence Boulevard, for flow and for safety reasons both. That all said, I was in support of the Roberto's project when it came before you last year, and we have yet to see how that's gonna work out, because they're not quite finished with that project. But the bottom line is a lot of this is city responsibility versus applicant responsibility. And I think that the traffic engineer needs to monitor this, just like he's going to be monitoring the Pinal Cottonwood project, and if mitigation needs to be made at a future time, the city's gonna have to eat that dime. That's the way that's gonna have to work, it looks like. But I'm in support of it, and I think you guys discussed about every option that you could for this, so thank you for your time.
You had 18 more seconds, you didn't have... That's long. See nobody else, I'll close the public portion. And kind of further the conversation with us.
Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve DSA-20-00192 for zone change from B2 to general.
To a PAD.
Yeah, on Treckle, and with all the staff recommendations or whatever.
I'll second, but it's 00092, not 192. They know.
They know, but they don't know.
They do.
But they didn't know.
As a point of clarification, is that a recommendation?
Oh, this goes to the city, I to approve to the city council.
00192.
I apologize. Forward to the city council.
It's 00192.
It is 192, right?
It's 192.
It says, in the staff report, it says 092, but.
It's supposed to be 00192, a 5-digit number, like all of our file numbers.
Those I have to forward to the city council.
Stop messing with me here.
Yeah,
Everything
the
I'm
staff
looking at
report
says
has it wrong,
192.
it's missing the 1, but it's fine.
Oh, you're talking about in the recommendation, I'm like, the heading says 192, the agenda says 192, the slide says 192.
This is what they tell me to do, that's what I do.
All right, you're confusing me, man. All right, so I have a motion and a second, and discussion. The only discussion piece that I have is, I'm gonna go back to, I don't understand why we're changing the zone of a commercial property on the corner when we have the appropriate zoning abutting this property. It'd be one thing if this zone didn't exist in this area, and we felt that it was a good use, but literally this zone exists right next door. That's what still confuses me, and so that's what I'm gonna say during discussion.
Because that's what the land that they own.
That's fair, it's the land that they own by all means, but.
Because it's his.
Hearing no other discussion, Natalie, would you call the roll?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Aye.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McBride,
Yes.
Chairman Miller,
No. So we've gone through the presentation in regards to the second one, so commission members.
So I'll make a motion to approve the major site plan DSA 2000191.
Second.
Subject to the approval from the city council of the PAD.
I second that motion.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Natalie, would you call the roll?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Aye.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
I'll vote no, just because of the traffic on both ends of this thing. I think it's gonna be a bloody nightmare.
Vice Chairman McBride,
Yes.
Chairman Miller,
No. Motion approved. All right. Good luck with your guys' project. Excited for the next steps. All right, reports by planning director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have to report that we approved a modification of the Texas Roadhouse site plan to add an enlarged outdoor patio area. And we also approved an amendment to the Lucid site plan for the Phase 1 to add a block and wrap building. Joe can tell you what that is if you want to know. Well, I have no idea what a block and wrap is.
They take the cars, they wrap them up in plastic, and then they put them on trucks to ship them across the country.
Okay, thanks, Joe. City council decisions, we had a few. Council met earlier this week on Monday night and had first reading of the ordinance on amending the text amendment on the flagpole height, and they approved that on first reading. Still needs a second reading. Same thing with the zone change from the I-1 and the I-1 to the R2 for that new single-family subdivision at Florence and Ash, south of downtown. And they also had first reading of the zone change from I-1 to PAD for the single-family rental project as well in that area. So those are the council actions, and I have provided you with your monthly reports, and that's all I have to report.
Was there a change to the recommendation we forwarded
Pardon?
on the setbacks?
Oh, on the, yes, on the, thank you. On the, there was discussion, but in the end, they went with the planning commission. No, they modified the
modified it.
planning condition recommendation, thank you, to potentially allow a 5-foot encroachment into that buffer, but it's still subject to major site plan review and determination at that time.
Thank you. All right. Other than that,
I think we can go. Move to adjourn?
motion? Second. All in favor?